What are some major trends that we should expect over the next 10, 20 years? Again, I just say this, all right? If you really believe that next week, Donald Trump and Iran are going to come to a peace agreement, if you believe that maybe in 5-6 months, both Iran and the United States will exhaust themselves, the global economy will suffer too much, and then they'll just stop the war, and things will go back to normal. I don't know what to tell you, okay? You're living in a fantasy world. You have to wake up and recognize that this is the end of the unipolar moment. We're moving towards a new world. And you can either choose to adapt to this new world, or you will die. It's that simple, all right? So, massive trend is de-industrialization and de-urbanization, where people in the cities will have to move back to the countryside, especially young people, okay? They have to learn like real skills. No more cryptocurrency trading for you guys, okay? Learn how to milk a cow, or kill a chicken, or grow food, whatever, okay? But just do something useful for your life. Nationalism and remilitarization is very important, where you have to get young people who willing to fight and defend your land, okay? And that means getting them to believe that your nation deserves to be strong. So whichever nations are most ready and most able to excite their younger population into fighting wars will be the ones who will be most resilient. Mercantile systems, basically independent trading blocks. Resource wars is a very big thing, okay? Famines, genocides, slavery. Okay? So remember, throughout most of human history, humans were the cheap energy. If you don't have access to cheap oil, well, then you're going to enslave human beings, all right? This is not a pretty future, but it is a future that could happen, and you have to mentally prepare yourself for this possibility, okay? Mass migration, where people in the South are most likely to suffer from resource wars over water and food and people, so they try to escape to Europe and North America, okay? Revolution, civil wars, and political instability in North America and in Europe because the baby boomers refuse to retire from the scene. And these are aging populations, massive inequality, massive corruption, massive stagnancy. And so this will lead to chaos in the streets, okay? Religion is a big thing. If you are not religious, I actually recommend looking into the possibility of becoming a religion, okay? It's going to be very useful for what's going to happen later on. These are things I will talk about more in the future, okay? But I will bring them up now. Like, how do I see the world in 10, 20 years' time, all right? So I will say this. I think that there will be eventually an alliance between Russia and Germany in Europe. Maybe for the next 5-10 years, Germany and Russia will go to war against each other, but eventually what the two will figure out is they're better off actually working together than fighting against each other, okay? You have Pax Judaica. Remember, the entire point of this war in Iran, from Israel's perspective, is to knock out America from the Middle East and establish itself as the local hegemon, and then it becomes Pax Judaica, okay? So I think Israel will come to dominate the Middle East. But then you're like, what about Iran? Okay, and like, I know this is hard to understand, but if the United States were to leave the scene and Israel and Iran had to go to war against each other, what would happen is they would say, why? Because Israel is like, I don't want Persia. And then Iran is like, I don't want Israel. And Israel has nuclear weapons. So they would agree to split the Middle East up where Iran controls Strait of Hormuz and Israel controls the Levant, right? Historically, actually, the Israelis, the Jewish people, they hated the Greeks, they hated the Romans, but they actually thought they had the Persians. So there's this history going back where Persians and Jews actually get along very well. And in fact, in the Middle East, the place outside Israel with the largest Jewish population is Iran. And they're very well treated there. Okay, so I don't see why, if America were to leave the scene, why couldn't Israel and Iran come to a mutually satisfactory agreement that benefits both nations? Right? Japan. Again, I think the major problem facing all Western industrial nations is the aging crisis. What do you do with these people who are 90 years old? They can't get out of the house. Their brains aren't really functioning properly, but they still control all the money, all the power, and they're extremely influential. What do you do? Well, in most countries, you can't do anything about it. But Japan is a very special country where the elderly have more obligation to the nation, to the people. So it could be a situation where Japan is in a lot of trouble and the elderly voluntarily choose to exit power and give it to the young. All right? But I think Japan's the only nation that would do this voluntarily. Every other nation, basically, there has to be wars in order for the young to arise to power. All right, the American Holy Empire. The nation that is most capable of surviving the next few decades of tribulation, of crisis, is America. Why? Because America is so incredibly wealthy, okay? It's protected by 2 oceans. It really controls Canada and Mexico. So think of America as not just the continent of America, but really as entire North American and Latin American, okay? That entire sphere is basically America. So it has unlimited resources. It has unlimited population. And also America, the Americans are the most creative, the most entrepreneurial, the most energetic people in the world. So I would bet against America, all right? But what I think will happen is that America will need a new identity in order to survive the age of tribulation. They will go from Pax Americana, which is a secular, global idea, to one that is much more nationalistic, that is more focused on community and nation. That means embracing Christianity. Okay? And I think that Christianity will be the force that rebuilds America after the many crises America will face over the next few years. The last thing that will happen is techno-Marxism, okay? Where nations that have the resources want to institute an AI surveillance state to better marshal the limited resources to basically to better control its people. And it's something we'll talk about later on, okay? But basically, you will have this sharp division of people into different classes. Where at the very top, you have freedom, but people at the very bottom become slaves or serfs, right? Okay, so that is it for trends I see in the future. Again, I say this, but you have to give the illusion that this war will end soon, and that once this war ends, then we'll go back to the things before this war, okay? No, the world has completely changed. We're not going back to the old world. We're going to a new world. And what this new world will look like is something that we can choose to control.